Emily, English 112, Miss Brewer here for your week 3 video lecture. So this week we are going to do our last week of poetry, and we're going to get into MLA format because you will be writing your literary analysis in MLA format next week. So we'll review that this week so you kind of get a refresher on MLA from English 111 and the expectations for that. That will go quickly because you should have spent an entire semester in MLA for English 111. So this should be just a refresher for you. Now, this week's poetry I'm very excited about because this week's poetry is my favorite kind of poetry. So we're looking at spoken word poetry this week. It's much more modern, so I think you guys will enjoy that. You are actually going to watch the videos and watch the performances as opposed to reading the poem in front of you, so hopefully you enjoy that. What I will tell you to do is make sure you have your closed captioning on because you want to pay attention to the words too. So even though this is like a video for you to watch, you should be watching it more than once and making note of things that stand out to you, particularly figurative language, rhyme, those types of things for your analysis in your journal and next week's discussion forum. Okay, so that's super important to remember. For some reason, the poetry assignment, when you open it up, you will note that there are 3 links and then embedded videos. Make sure you do the first 3, okay? Especially the one that says watch this first. You need to watch Sarah Kay's TED Talk first. It's long, it's the longest one, okay? Because it talks about how to write spoken word poetry and what is kind of involved in that. So you want to watch that first. Then you have 2 poems by my favorite spoken word poet, Clint Smith. So those don't show up as a little video, they're just links, but it'll open up in a new window and make sure you watch those. You'll note that the poems are kind of grouped together by theme, okay? So there's Clint Smith's are kind of similar. Then you'll have the next 2 are kind of similar, then the next 2 are kind of similar, and then the last 2 are kind of similar. And that's on purpose. It will make it easier for you when it comes time to write your literary analysis, and you'll have 2 spoken word poems that are around sort of the same kind of a theme. Now, you guys have been really good about finding, other underlying themes that stand out to you in the poems, and that is great and that is okay. So as long as you can back it up, you don't have to really worry about, is this right or is this wrong? Unless you're like way off in left field, and then I might give you a little guidance when it comes to themes and things like that, because we do want to make sure we are genuinely trying to figure out what is the author trying to say about society, okay? So when you read the poem and it stands out to you and it reminds you of these things, that's cool. But when it comes to the theme, what is the author trying to say about these things? That's really important. Okay, so I just want to take some time to go through a mini lecture. Before I do that, reviewing what's due this week. So your week 2 discussion forum is this week, meaning your discussion forum is about last week's poems, okay? So those written poems that we read last week. So I would suggest doing your initial response for that first, so go ahead and get that knocked out. And then your journal is about this week's poems, about the spoken word poems. So you're kind of doing both. So save the journal for after you've watched all the poems, right? Your initial response for your discussion forum is due Thursday night. You have 2 peer replies due by Sunday night. Your journal is due by Sunday night. And this week you will also have a MLA review quiz. And the MLA review quiz is your attendance assignment. There's not a separate attendance assignment this week. When you complete the quiz, that is your attendance assignment. So there you go. And the MLA review quiz is just kind of a review of what is MLA, You learned some of it last semester, and I have this PowerPoint just to kind of remind you about MLA expectations and the expectations for this course. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that PowerPoint now. So you may want to follow along with me. And it's just kind of, like I said, a review of what MLA is. Remember that MLA stands for Modern Language Association. That might be something you see on your final exam, that kind of a question. MLA format is very basic. The basic format for MLA, you have Times New Roman, 12-point font. Your paper should be double spaced. There should be a header at the top right of every page. There should be a heading on the left side of the first page only, and that's where you put your name, my name, your course, and the date. Your header is just last name, page number at the top right. The title of your paper, and you should always have a title for your paper, and the title should be indicative of what the paper is about, not the assignment title. So the title should be centered. It is Times New Roman, 12-point font, not special in any way. No bold, no underline, no italics, no nothing, unless you have the title of a poem or the title of something, then you would obviously punctuate that correctly. And you can always go to Purdue OWL to check for any help you need on formatting. And that is a question on your final exam, okay? And you do have to write actually Purdue OWL, okay, to make sure you get that correct. So you are required to document when you guys do research. Obviously, we're in MLA format for the first part of the course, so you must include in-text citations in your paper. It's imperative that you do that. Your in-text citations should be in MLA format, meaning they should include the first word or couple of words of your works cited page. That's really important because that's a question on your quiz and that's a question on your final exam. It is not always author's last name. Usually the author's last name is the first word. However, there are times where you do not have an author. So the best way for you to know what goes in your parentheses is to look at your works cited page. The first word or couple of words from the full citation is what goes in your parentheses. So if you have one author, then it's just that author's last name. If you have two authors, then it's both of their last names. If you have three or more in MLA format, then it is the first name and et al, meaning and others. It's Latin. So it's important that we remember when you're asked what goes into the parentheses in an in-text citation, author's last name is the incorrect answer. The correct answer is the first word or couple of words from the works cited page. If you have a page number, you must include the page number. For poetry, we will include the line number, and we'll talk about that later. But in your scholarly articles, you have to include page numbers when you have those available to you. So there's no punctuation in between. So if I write a book, all right, and you're citing me, and you're going to quote me from page 15, in the parentheses it says Brewer 15. That's it. No comma, no P period. That will change when we get to APA format, but for MLA format, no punctuation inside of the parentheses. The only time that is different is if there is no author and you're using either a website title or the title of an article, okay? And if that's the case, those things go in quotation marks, so you would actually have the quotation marks within your parentheses. So if I have an article title and no author, and the title is How to Cite Properly, then I would pull out How to Cite, put that in quotation marks, and then the page number in the parentheses, all right? Your period always comes after your parentheses. Your period ends the sentence. All right, you have a works cited page. Your works cited page should be in alphabetical order. You should have hanging indentations, and it should be a complete citation. So your literary essay requirements. You guys are going to be writing a literary analysis essay, and I'll go more into depth about that later, okay? But you guys are going to be utilizing at least 2 scholarly articles and the poetry that you're going to analyze. And we'll talk about what the paper assignment is next week, but just be aware that that is your research, okay? Expectations for academic paper. Formal and academic writing means you do not use personal pronouns. No me, no I, no you, no we, no our. You do not use contractions ever in the paper. You still use an apostrophe to show possession, you just don't use contractions. Do not directly address the reader, okay? So if you're giving a command like consider this or imagine a world, I'm implied there. There's an implied you as the reader, and you do not directly address the reader in formal academic language. You are only presenting research in your paper, okay? So everything that you're writing about, you're either citing lines from the poetry or you're citing lines from scholarly articles or both to prove your point. Please do not end your paper with in conclusion or in summary or anything like that. That's just really bad writing. You don't need to say in conclusion, you just conclude the paper. Do not ask questions in your paper, make statements. You don't ask and then answer yourself, okay? So instead of saying, what could possibly be the theme of Langston Hughes's poem, you just say, the theme of Hughes's poem is, okay? And then of course you spell out all numbers under 100 and you spell out symbols. And then I'm gonna go into the expectations and the grading criteria and things like that. I'm gonna go into that next week. So we'll go back to this PowerPoint next week when we talk about your actual paper. But I just wanted to make sure you understood that those couple of things, because that's what's gonna be on your quiz, okay, for this week. So just to kind of sum up, you guys do, oh, and one more thing, hopefully y'all have stuck it through to 11 minutes with me on this lecture, because you have only 3 scholarly articles provided to you, okay? The first is actually a chapter from a book about spoken word poetry, and it is required, okay? So I'm going to expect you to cite that in your paper. So make sure you go ahead and read it. The other 2 you can choose to read if you want, and you may choose to cite them, or you may not in your paper, okay? But that first one, it says required reading, so do make sure that you read that this week. As usual, if you guys have any questions, you can contact me via email, or you can utilize my office hours, which are virtual. Pop in, ask your question, and pop on out and get an immediate answer. And I will make sure that I'm responding to you guys as quickly as I can in regard to the questions. Once again, to reiterate, your attendance assignment this week is your MLA quiz. No extra work, okay? So you have some reading, you have lots of poems to watch, and you have a discussion forum, but no attendance assignment. Just make sure you complete the quiz to be counted as present. Have a great week.